Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Well, today we're tackling something that I think a lot of us struggle with. It's productivity.
Of course, who doesn't love a good productivity hack?
Right. But here's the thing. We're going beyond those surface level tips and tricks to explore something a bit deeper,
Hmm.
uh, a bit darker even.
Ooh, getting a little ominous.
Huh?
I like it.
Well, you know how we always talk about being productive and getting things done? Well, what if I told you there's a dark side to all that go-getter energy? We're talking about toxic productivity.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one. It's like we're so obsessed with doing more, being more, that we forget to actually live.
And to help us unpack all of this, we've got some excerpts from this really fascinating article called Five Ways to Handle Toxic Productivity. I'm really excited to dig into it.
I am too, because it's like we said, productivity is often seen as this purely positive thing.
Totally.
But there's this whole other side to it, a side that can actually be pretty damaging if we're not careful.
For sure. And the article kicks things off by making this really important distinction between balanced diligence
Mm-hmm.
and excessive diligence. Have you heard of those terms before?
Yeah, I have. And it's such a simple but powerful way to frame it?
It is.
Because it's like you said, balanced diligence is all about finding that sweet spot.
Yeah, it's like you're working hard, you're pursuing your goals, but you're also making time for rest, for relationships, for things that actually bring you joy.
Right. It's sustainable.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about working smarter and living well.
Versus excessive diligence, where you're just constantly pushing yourself to the limit.
Yeah, you're not really checking in with yourself to see if you're actually enjoying the process.
And it's usually driven by this like deep-seated fear or insecurity.
Oh, totally. Like you're constantly trying to prove yourself to others or even to yourself.
Exactly. And it can really take a toll on your mental and physical health.
No kidding. It makes me think of all those times I felt that productivity guilt, you know.
Oh, tell me about it.
Even when I'm exhausted, there's this voice in my head telling me that I should be doing more.
It's the worst. And you know what? A lot of people experience that same kind of guilt.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The American Psychological Association actually did a study on this, and they found that this pressure to be constantly productive can lead to serious burnout.
Oh, wow. That's a little scary.
It is. But the good news is that there are ways to break free from that cycle. The article actually suggests a really simple but powerful tool: journaling.
Interesting. How can journaling help with that?
Well, it helps you tap into those underlying emotions that are driving that need to be productive all the time.
Ah, I see.
Like, imagine sitting down with your journal and asking yourself, okay, what am I truly afraid of? What's driving this need to constantly prove myself?
Hmm. Yeah. I can see how that would be insightful.
You might be surprised by what comes up.
Absolutely.
Sometimes just acknowledging those feelings can be the first step to letting them go.
So it's like you're kind of shining a light on those hidden fears and motivations.
Right. Exactly. And then the article also talks about setting realistic goals, which is huge.
That's so important. I know I'm guilty of creating these massive to-do lists that just set me up for overwhelm.
Me too. And then you feel bad when you don't get everything done, which just perpetuates that cycle of guilt and anxiety.
Totally.
So instead of doing that, what if we try focusing on just a few key tasks each day?
Okay, I like that.
And, make sure they actually align with your values and your long-term goals.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just spinning your wheels and not really making any progress.
Exactly. And it's much easier to stay motivated when you feel like you're actually moving towards something meaningful.
Now, this is where things get really sneaky. The article talks about how toxic productivity can actually disguise itself as these seemingly harmless habits.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's like those little things we do that seem productive on the surface, but they're actually just adding to our stress levels.
Exactly.
Huh.
I am so guilty of working through lunch or checking emails late at night. It's like I feel like I'm being super efficient, but in reality, I'm just burning myself out.
Oh, I totally get it. I used to do the same thing. We think we're being productive,
Hmm.
but we're actually just creating this constant state of stress where our brains never get a chance to truly disconnect.
It's true. It's like we're always on.
Yeah. And that's where those short breaks come in.
Yeah, the article talks about how important it is to schedule in even just a few minutes to walk, stretch, or do some deep breathing. Have you found that those breaks actually help?
Oh, they're a game changer. It sounds counterintuitive, But giving your brain a chance to rest can actually make you more productive in the long run.
It's like hitting the reset button.
Exactly. And there's actual research that backs this up. Studies have shown that taking short breaks can boost your efficiency by up to 40%.
Wow, 40%. That's
I
huge.
know, right? So next time you're feeling that pressure to power through, remember that taking a break is actually a strategic move.
It's like, you're not being lazy, you're being smart.
Exactly. Okay, ready to tackle some of those pesky productivity myths?
Oh yeah, hit me.
Okay, myth number one, multitasking makes us more efficient. True or false?
Oh man, I used to think that was so true. I prided myself on being a master multitasker.
I know, right? We all fall for this one.
But the article kind of burst that bubble.
It does, doesn't it? Because
Hmm.
research actually shows that multitasking can reduce your productivity by up to 40%.
Wait, so I'm actually less productive when I try to do a million things at once?
Yep. Our brains just aren't wired to handle that kind of cognitive overload. When we try to juggle too many things at once, we end up doing all of them poorly.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So maybe it's time to dish the myth of the superhuman multitasker.
Definitely. Focus on one thing at a time, and you'll be amazed at how much more you get done.
And what about that idea that being busy equals being productive?
Ah, another classic myth. This one's so ingrained in our culture, it's hard to shake.
I know, right? It's like we wear our busyness as a badge of honor.
But the truth is, being busy doesn't necessarily mean you're actually accomplishing anything meaningful.
So true. It's like running on a hamster wheel, going through the motions, but not really getting anywhere.
Right. And there's actually a principle called the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule, which states that 80% of our results come from just 20% of our efforts.
Wow. Okay, so it's not about doing more, it's about doing the right things.
Exactly. And the key is to identify those high-impact tasks, the 20% that will really move the needle, and focus your energy there. Let go of all that other busy work that's just draining your time and energy.
Work smarter, not harder, right?
Exactly. And this brings us to the article's final point, which I think is the most important of all. Rest is not a reward, it's essential.
Oh, I love that reframing.
Right. Because we often think of rest as something we earn after we've been sufficiently productive.
Totally. Like it's a treat we give ourselves once we've checked everything off our to-do list.
But the truth is, rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's crucial for both our productivity and our overall well-being.
You know, it makes me think of all those times I've pushed myself to work late into the night, thinking I was being super productive.
Oh, yeah. I've been there too.
And then the next day, I'm completely exhausted and can barely focus. It's like I ended up shooting myself in the foot.
Exactly. And there's research to back this up. The University of California found that people who take regular breaks are actually 26% more likely to solve problems effectively.
So it's like we're actually hindering our productivity when we don't allow ourselves to rest and recharge.
Absolutely. Rest allows our minds to reset, to process information, to come up with new ideas.
It's like hitting the refresh button on your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about productivity either. Rest is about honoring yourself, allowing your mind and body to recharge, and coming back to your work with more energy and creativity.
So it sounds like the key takeaway here is that it's all about finding that balance, that sweet spot where we're working with purpose and passion without sacrificing our health and happiness.
Precisely. So here's a question for all of you listening. How can you incorporate this concept of balanced diligence into your own lives, starting today? What small changes can you make to prioritize both productivity and well-being? Maybe it's scheduling in those short breaks, setting more realistic goals, or simply being more mindful of the motivations behind your actions. Whatever it is, I encourage you to experiment and find what works for you.
Yeah, and remember, a truly productive life is one that's balanced and fulfilling, not just busy. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.